Hey guys, it's Pete from Pete from Anxiety here. Welcome to today's episode. I appreciate y'all being here so much. Let's talk about a few things real quick. The Pete vs. Anxiety Team Anxiety Facebook group. Are you a part of it? You're not? What are you waiting for? The link's down here in the description down below, or go to Facebook and search Pete vs. Anxiety. Then look for the Team Anxiety Team page and join it today. Why not? You can join and help. It'll be great. Yeah, like right now. Hurry up. Stop what you're doing. Pause this video. Go do it right now. But anyways, let's also talk about the Pete vs. Anxiety YouTube page. If you're here right now, you're probably following it most likely. If not, head on over there, subscribe, be sure to like and comment on the videos and let me know, because all that stuff really helps, guys. I really appreciate it. And help me break the stigma that mental health is talked about enough. But anyways, guys, let's get into today's episode. I'll have a great one. Thank you so much again. And as I always say, don't ask how your day is, ask how your mental health is today.
Guys, welcome to an exciting episode of Pete for Anxiety. I have a very special guest today. He is a survivor of narcissistic abuse who later became a coach and a therapist specializing in narcissism and relationship healing. His personal experience and professional journey have given him an intimate understanding of the subject, allowing him to guide clients through emotional growth, healing, the transformation of relationships, and his soon to be released called the Narcissistic Recovery Project. Please welcome in Darren Elliott.
Thank you so much, Pete. I'm excited to be here.
Definitely, Darren. Listen, I'm so excited, guys. You missed part of the conversation. Darren and I were just chatting it up about narcissism. This is going to be a real great episode. Darren is going to give us a lot of insight. We have a lot of interesting topics to talk about. So, Darren, why don't you give them a little rundown of a little about yourself, some things that they may not know that we didn't intro you with.
Yeah. So, thanks, Pete. Yeah, as you mentioned, I grew up in a narcissistic family system, but this is important to know. Whatever you grow up with is normal for you. So I didn't know that. In fact, I didn't know that till I was well into middle age, and I had repeated my family system in 2 different long-term relationships. And truly, when I woke up to recognize that in my own family were traits of narcissism, it really was a shocking revelation. Because the word narcissism, well, it gets thrown around. It gets thrown around like as an insult rather than actual meaning
A
of what
lot.
it is.
A lot.
Right? And it's hard to see. Whatever you grow up with is normal for you, right? You are born into the world. Your eyes and ears and senses are telling you what the world are. The way your parents are treating each other, that's just the way parents treat each other. You don't know any different. The way your parents treat you, that's just the way parents treat kids. You don't know that's narcissism. You don't know that being devalued is not okay. You don't, you don't know that not every parent is lying to get their way rather than actually being honest and asking in a direct way. Whatever you grow up with is normal for you. And what has happened all across the world, in fact, but especially, especially here in North America, and America especially, people came back from wars with trauma. And traumatized men especially were expected to be happy to be home from war. Oh, we used to be happy you're home. They were traumatized. They thought they should be happy they're home, but they had trauma stuck in their body, and we didn't understand it then. And so many of these men were suffering from extremely severe PTSD. And their friend's head got blown off beside them. And then 2 weeks later, they're home having dinner with their kids, and they're supposed to be happy to be home with no kind of trauma counseling or support. We just did not know. We just didn't know. So what these men did, and there were so very many of them, they're now disconnected from their emotions because their emotions are something they can't deal with. And they also have a trigger. It means like you could say something and they can feel like they're back in the war, essentially. You could remind them of something. That's a triggered emotion that brings them into a big ball. All that stuff they couldn't process. The time their buddy's head got blown up, the time they were afraid for their life, the time they were running for safety and didn't think they were going to survive, all that energy that didn't get processed, didn't get shared, didn't have an outlet, all there to go smash. If you're the kid in that family, all you know is that's dad.
Yeah.
You don't know that's dad with CPTSD back from war. And that gets passed on. So it truly did get passed on through patterning. That kind of dad would be a little bit explosive. He would teach the kids, just be a man. Oh, that's nothing. Oh, you just broke your leg. Don't cry about it.
Yeah.
I thought that is disconnection from your emotions. And that is from CPTSD. That became normalized in America in very many communities.
Well,
that
didn't
was
they for a
always
while
abusive.
But didn't they always for a while too say that we used to call it shell shock? They didn't call it PTSD for the longest time. They always thought that only PTSD was in military guys only. nobody else could get it. So that was the longest for the long time. They kept thinking that's all it was, but they called it shell shock, correct? And I mean, not right. That's what they used to call it.
They called it shell shock, but they didn't understand the repercussions.
Yeah.
If you have a shell shocked man, now he might not be able to be emotionally attuned to his partner. And it's okay, he's back from war. He wasn't like this before, so it was all forgiven. And he'd get triggered into being mean, and that would just be normal, and we had to forgive him because he's back from war. Well, the kids ended up treating their partners in the same way. The patterns are deep. We don't want to be
Yeah.
like our patterns, but when we're in the middle of the things and our kids doing the thing, the pattern comes out of what our dad did to us. And in the Black community, corporal punishment was huge, huge. After slavery, after being brutalized and traumatized, the next generation, the only way they knew how to parent was to hit their kids like they were beating themselves, and they would
Yeah.
say, "I'm beating because I love you." The trauma goes down and it goes
Yeah.
down and it goes down. And now we're watching an accumulation of trauma, and we need to turn it around. We need to turn it around by one by one by one, and that comes from trusting each other again. It comes from learning to love each other. That's what we're meant to be doing. In a safe world, it's easy to love each other. If we co-create our relationships. If I'm afraid of you, I'm going to create a very different kind of relationship than if I feel safe with you. Because if I'm afraid of you, it even turns off part of my brain. If I'm afraid of you, it turns off my empathy and compassion. So when leaders cause us to be afraid of each other, they're causing us to turn off our empathy and compassion for each other. This goes really wrong, and it is going really wrong. But this is the same thing that happens in relationships that we're watching happening out in culture and we're watching happening in politics. But it needs to start with the bottom. It needs to start with us in the relationships and trusting our neighbors, learning to love each other, and being able to recognize abusive behavior, even if it's dad, even if it's
Mhm.
mom. That's where the problem comes from, because if dad looks like that, you're not going to recognize that it's anything wrong with Trump either. You'd be like, oh yeah, he's an okay guy, he's kind of like dad, like that. You become blind. You become blind to narcissistic abuse, and then before we know it, we watch a whole nation be narcissistically abused. And truly, the whole nation is going to need to recover from this,
Yeah.
because narcissistic abuse looks like gaslighting. It looks like creating a false reality and trying to pull you into it, pull you into it. Our neighbors are against us. Canada's being unfair. Canada's cheating. Fentanyl's coming from Canada. All these lies, these lies, these lies, but it's a fake narrative that they pull you into their narrative. In relationship, it's the same. They have a narrative. In my family, my father was a good Christian man. So that was the family narrative. And we were the perfect, happy family. And that was the narrative we all had to live. And that was the words that came out of everyone's mouth, um, until I was 12. And when I was 12, my 13-year-old brother, I'm going right into the deeps here with you, Pete. When I was
Let's go.
12,
I'm ready. Let's go.
my 13-year-old brother, and this is a story that doesn't ring true for many Canadians, but it does for many Americans, because in Canada we don't have guns. It's unusual. I don't think I know one person who has a gun at their house or in
Yeah.
their condo. Like it's just not something we do. But in my childhood, there happened to be the case that my grandparents had a collection of guns from back in the day that my father kept, and they were locked in my basement, in my family's basement in the family home. And I knew my brother had the key to that gun cabinet, that he had found it, and he found it fun. It was interesting for him. That I remember he brought me into the workshop and was like, "Look what I have," and he showed me. He took out a gun and he was playing with it, and I was like, "Oh." And I had been taught not to be a tattletale.
Yeah.
And we were taught very sternly not to be a tattletale. And I didn't understand it was because we were basically being abused and we weren't supposed to talk about any of it.
Yeah.
Um, but I wasn't a tattletale. So I didn't tell anyone my brother had the key to the gun cabinet, was playing with guns. So 2 days later, a bullet went through his head.
Oh shit.
And it was a brain injury. And it was an accident. Um, but he was also an angry kid.
Yeah.
But everything changed from that moment, but that became a smoke screen. Because from then the family story changed to, we had the perfect happy family until Mark shot himself in the head, and then everything was awful. But for me, I was a depressed kid. I remember being depressed before then. I remember feeling like it was my only job to pretend I was happy. I was absolutely ashamed because in our family, you're supposed, oh, don't be like that. Just cheer up.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
go to your room until you can cheer up again. I don't want to hear about it. It was just supposed to be up and up and up. Well, that's what happened with CPTSD fathers back from war too. They had to keep it on the up, and let's have fun. Oh, let's just have a good time. Oh no, we can't talk about something serious. They couldn't go near the serious things because there was too much there. You
Yeah.
start to go serious, it's like poof. There's all this serious, right? There's all the really serious stuff they never wanted to talk about. All the really serious stuff they never wanted to process. That happened for the next generation too. My father didn't go to war, but he did have trauma. And he was taught not to deal with it, and he was taught not to feel it, and he was taught not to talk about it. So it didn't go away. It just built up so that he couldn't talk about anything serious anymore without getting annoyed.
Yeah.
And that was him rejecting trauma. And we've been taught to do that. Men have been taught that they don't have nervous systems. We have nervous systems just like women have nervous systems. And those nervous systems are making messages of fear and well, all the feelings, the anxiety, right? These are
Hmm.
things that are coming from our loneliness. These are real feelings. But men have been taught, and a lot of men have been taught just to man up, and
Yep.
that to be a man means to stay calm when you're upset without conveying that you're upset, or to not allow yourself to get upset, or to not allow yourself to be afraid. Our emotions are not meant to take us down. We are meant to be able to feel that we're afraid and say, oh my gosh, I'm really afraid. And to feel the heartbeat racing and to feel the thing and be able to deal with it. But our emotions have become dangerous because a generation didn't know how to deal with theirs and didn't teach the next generation how to deal with theirs. So when you're avoiding your emotions, you end up needing narcissistic processes to take care of yourself. It just happens. It just happens. It's not that people are bad intentioned. It's not that people are bad people. It's just that when you cannot truly connect with yourself in a deep way because you weren't taught to, and over time it gets harder and harder and harder, then you're not connected to yourself. And if you're not connected to yourself in those deep emotions, you also are not connected to your partner in
Yeah.
those deep emotions. And most often here in Toronto, I see when I'm working with couples, it's a husband and a wife that are perfectly well intentioned, nice people, living by their values. There's no overt abuse happening,
Yeah.
but but she feels like she's alone, and she just sort of feels in pain about it, and she just wishes he could be closer. And he's just sitting there confused. I don't know what she's asking for. I don't know. I don't know. I'm a good guy. I come home every day after work. I don't cheat on her. And they don't know what's wrong. They're not feeling their emotions. If you're not feeling your emotions, sir, you're not feeling hers either, which
Yeah.
means she's actually alone in her emotions. And that's okay if she's with a coworker or a friend, but she needs it in you because you're her intimate partner.
Yeah.
And men don't realize this. You cannot avoid your emotions and not be avoiding others' emotions. If you can't go there with you, you can't go there with them. And that's disconnection. And people don't know it's disconnection. And it's going wrong all over because when I get into that state of disconnection, I lose empathy because if I'm not feeling, I'm also not feeling with you. So I don't feel when I hurt you, right? So if I
Yeah.
say something mean, it doesn't actually have the impact of making me feel bad that I hurt you, because I'm not allowing myself to feel that anyway. And I'll double down and tell myself you deserved it if I did.
Yeah.
It in the case of narcissism. And that's where the narcissistic defenses start getting bigger and bigger. For someone who doesn't feel, they're going to make all sorts of mistakes. They're going to hurt people here and hurt people there, and they end up having narcissistic defenses to protect themselves from their shame, that what they just said hurt someone's feelings. Oh, they're just too sensitive.
Yeah. Yeah. That's one you hear a lot is they're too sensitive, or
Yeah,
the younger generation's too sensitive. But is it really? I think it's more they're becoming more in tune with their feelings now. They're not accepting the same things as that everything our parents have been taught or their grandparents are taught. And since they're going against the grain, then instantly it's, oh, you're too sensitive. And they say the same thing about females too. Oh, you're too sensitive. To me, it's like my thing was that I posted a question several times that the whole idea of the alpha male. Okay, think of it this way: if he's an alpha male, he should be able to be in tune with his feelings as well, correct? Because alpha means that you're the top dog, so you should be able to hit all corners of that. So if you can't
Yes.
feel your emotions, then how are you the alpha male?
Yeah, and I have that. You may have seen that on the website. Men are meant to be. If you want to be a leader, you need to be an emotional leader,
Exactly.
not an emotional avoider. What
Yep.
what goes wrong when you avoid your emotions? And we're seeing it all over. If you don't play soccer, you don't get good at it.
Yeah.
If you avoid your emotions, you actually do not grow up emotionally. You do not develop mature emotional processes if you do not deal with your emotions. So, what we're really looking at is immaturity emotionally in men and emotional maturity in women
Yeah.
is the difference. But our DNA combines every generation. We both have nervous systems and we both have that ability to attune and to feel our feelings. But culture shapes us because we get good at what we practice and we don't get good at what we don't practice. And we all have narcissism. Every single one of us. We're born little narcissists.
Yeah.
That's the term was used by Freud for people to describe us as kids, and that's where people misunderstand this. So we come into the world thinking the world revolves around us, and we learn about what's happening, and we don't have object constancy yet, which
Yeah.
means mom leaves the room and like, oh, she's gone, she's gone.
Yeah.
That is lacking in narcissism. They never grow out of that. They develop a slight object constancy, but they're not able to hold. And this is a big part of the problem. They're not able to hold that you're a good person and I don't like what you're doing. So those two things cannot exist. If I don't like what you're doing, you must be a bad person. So that's where the devaluation comes from. That's where the name calling comes from. So that's where the polarized experiences come from. But in a relationship, it looks like when they're mad at you, they forget that they love you. They forget that you're on their team. They forget that they care about you. They forget that you care about them. And that's where abuse happens.
Mm-hmm.
And they will follow their self-image like the good Christian man my father was. So he would follow his self-image and he would take the high road. But he would get triggered into contempt and blame and vengeance. But he would be showing that he's fine. Oh, he's fine. He's fine. But meanwhile, he's like underneath.
Yeah.
So he still had that triggered state, but he was usually hiding it. And that's very common that they hide it. They'll show it if they think it's deserved and it's the right thing and they feel justified. They'll lash out and they'll say mean things. Or they'll keep it to themselves and they're like, oh, I'll get you later. Or in the case of my dad, he would say something really quiet, like, go to your room. I never want to see you again.
Oh yeah.
Just mean, just something mean, and just something that no one else would even notice. And I'd go hide in the basement for a day. Like but because he would say it in such a cold and hateful way. And part of that is too, they do devalue. When they don't like what their kid is doing, they do feel a dislike for their kid. And if you have
Yeah.
a highly sensitive kid like me, you can feel your father's hatred coming towards you when you do what he doesn't like. And that feels horrible because it's not a normal off switch. A normal, healthy person is still able to love their kid that didn't do the thing they liked.
Yeah.
Especially if the thing they didn't like was coloring. They're going to hopefully control themselves from going into hatred. So I saw a different father than my siblings saw as well because of this.
Yeah.
Because of course they react differently to different people. Different people in the family have different roles with the narcissist parent.
Yeah.
Um,
I
and
was going to
and that
touch on that real fast, Darren,
mhm.
because my mom is the same way. I looked at my mom a different way than my brothers and sisters do. So when you said that, that hit home for me because that's how it was for me, though. But when my mother was in place where your father was, though, because my brothers and sisters didn't see her the same way I did because she was always very controlling with me, and I didn't like that, and she was
Mm.
very possessive about certain things, like we got into a disagreement about I don't remember exactly what it was. I did something she didn't like, so she ended up just taking me to my dad's house and dropping me off on his doorstep and just left. But my brothers and sisters didn't see anything wrong with that. They were like, "Oh no, she didn't do that." You know what I mean? Like things like
That's a
it's like,
discard. That's a discard, and it's abuse because it has such a big impact on the kid.
yeah,
That's why it's considered abuse. It's
yeah,
invisible abuse, those things. It's invisible abuse, and it causes so much damage. Um, that would cause an attachment issue in you, where
Yeah.
you could be feeling an anxious attachment if your mom's going to reject you when she doesn't like what you're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're meant to address the behavior, not the person. And that's a really important parenting tip. When your kid does something bad, it's a bad thing your kid did, not a bad kid.
Yeah. No, I get
And
that.
because the generation I came up from is very common. Bad boy, go to your room. Instead of saying, wow, you could have really hurt your sister. That was a really bad thing to do. That you know, think about what you did right now and think about what it could have done. That was such a bad thing you did. And I know you're better than that. So you're going to do better next time. When you brand the kid as bad, over time they brand themselves as bad. And then it doesn't matter, like, oh, I'm bad anyway. It's
Yeah.
they do give up. They do give up. It's so you and the very different experience that we have of our parents. Yeah, you exactly touched on it. Because if in the case of my family, my dad was an engineer and we were all extensions of him who should certainly be engineers. There was absolutely no room for any kind of alternate family story. Then we're all successful engineers. We couldn't be a successful anything else and be acceptable. Um, so that worked out for the oldest. He wanted to be an engineer anyway, just like dad. And he admired dad. Because he admired dad and looked up at dad, he got a really nice version of dad. Dad loves to be admired. He loves to be praised, loves to be like, oh yes, yes. He was charming. He had the biggest laugh, he had the biggest jokes. Unless you knew him for too long, because his jokes were the same ones over and over and over. You'd tell the same stories over and over and over, but they'd get bigger and bigger and bigger. And the family narrative was in his stories. And it was bizarre. You'd be at the back of church listening to dad tell stories of your holidays. And I remember once saying, like, that's not what happened. And I remember getting hit and how mad he was after church. He was so mad that you just learned to just listen to dad's stories. And yeah, that's the way it was. Sure.
Right.
Yeah. We all went to there and we did that. Okay. Leaving out the dad had a hissy fit and went off and did this. And mom was alone with the 4 kids all day doing that, and dad's having a great time over here. His story would always become the family story, and whatever memories you had would eventually recede because they
Yeah.
weren't allowed. I have ADHD, Pete. Like the train starts going this direction and then it takes this direction.
No, you're
I
good though.
can't
But
quite
I
remember
mean, you're
where the
touching
train was
all
coming from.
you're touching really good points though, because my mom was the same way. I told my kids about some of the things she would do, and I noticed it though. Now that I really think about it, when I was a kid, my grandmother did the same thing though. They both always denied when they did anything of abuse. Oh, I never did that. My mom would say, "Oh my, your grandmother being driving in the front and then reach in the back and try and slap us or whatever when she's driving the car, kind of thing." And my mom's laughing about it. My grandmother's like, "I never did that." And my mom, when I told my kids about, "Oh yeah, your grandmother, whooped my ass a couple times," and went into detail, like she beat me up one time. And she's like, "Oh, I never did that. Your dad's just making up stories, And she did the same exact thing. My grandmother and her did the same thing, and I noticed it, as a kid. I always thought it was weird, but then I really think about it now. I'm like, they both had the same similar traits. Like she learned it from her, and things like that. And I a little bit at first when I started my healing journey, then I denied what I did, but eventually I owned up to it. Like I literally had to own up to it. I wasn't the greatest dad to my kids, and I admitted it to them all. They all knew. I literally sat there with them at the table, and and the situation required that their mom had called CPS involved. So this is when the situation got real, and I told them straight out, I'm like, yeah, I did these things. I did these things in the past. Like I admit, I did some very bad things. I can't change the past. I can just look at towards the future. But I admit, and it was hard because it was hard for me to accept that I had done these things because their mom had always had me in a constant state of just like complete stressed out and things like that. And she gaslight me a lot. And, because I was with her for 15 years and she was a huge narcissist, the way she would do things, she controlled the situations. Anytime I ask and like start questioning something against the grain, oh, no, you're lying. You're making things up. But at the same time, I'm watching her lie to everybody around us. And I had to be quiet because I couldn't say anything, because then I would get in trouble with her, because, just like your dad would say, don't change the narrative of the story. This is the family story. Don't tell anybody I'm really lying to everyone in the back scene. So a lot of what you're saying is hitting home for me, because I'm like, yeah, I've been there. I know what it's like. It's rough.
And it's common, Pete. It's more common than people know.
Yeah.
It's the difference with you is the accountability.
It was hard. I'm not gonna lie. Like
Yeah.
it was hard to be accountable for the things I've done, and then I had to look back at the heinous things I said and did and all these other things, and I was in my own faults, and I'm not blaming 100% the narcissist I was with for 15 years, but she didn't help it much. She was gaslighting me, keep me in constant state of just questioning things, had me wondering even if I was going crazy because she's like, oh yeah, remember I told you about this person. Those random people that would show up and like, oh yeah, you know them. Remember I told you about them. I'm like, no, I have a really good memory. I think I'd remember people I've met before in my life. Oh no, remember you met them. You just don't remember. I'm like, oh, okay.
They're able to convince themselves of their own lies.
Mm-hmm.
And that is why they are so believable. Because they gaslight themselves and others. They're not
Yeah.
just gaslighting you. They're changing the narrative to their preferred narrative.
Yeah. Oh yeah, she did that a lot too. So
a lot. Yeah, yeah. That's turning tables. Just changing it, and twisting facts is common too. Just to twist it a little bit. And I hate to say it, but many Americans have been taught to twist facts, and it's. I lived in I didn't live in. I shouldn't say live. I stayed in Arkansas for 3 months.
Yeah.
So when I turned on the news in Arkansas, the local channels, I was constantly shocked by how they twisted reality for the listeners, manipulating news into being this twisted version of what was happening over and over and over and over again. Basically, teaching people how to be narcissistic from the news. It was, and I'll give you an example of what was happening that it was bugging me. I was there in 2016, so that was a really special time. And I was I was there in the fall, so I was there during a big event, as you can imagine. But what was happening in the news while I was in Arkansas was up in Canada. In 2016, we were finally getting around to rewriting the legislation to make sure that it include all the humans that we have in any kind of form that they want to present themselves, because we think human rights are for humans.
Yeah.
And so we were rewriting some things to make sure that trans people had protections.
Yeah.
So on the daily Arkansas news, this drove them mad. I'm like, why do they care so much about what Canada is granting rights for their humans? Like, why did they? Anyway, what they were saying on the news, and listen for the twist. Up in Canada, they are forcing transsexual values onto their entire population.
Yeah.
It's an abomination. And we must make sure it doesn't happen down here. So, and then they would talk about why gay marriage has to be a fight, why they shouldn't allow gay marriage. And when I was in Arkansas, there was some kind of big private group trying to sue to not have gay marriage. Just the fear mongering.
Yeah,
and
it happens
the
a lot.
distraction, but it was
It's just crazy.
my family. I'm an ex-evangelical, and I know where that stuff comes from. As an ex-evangelical, I was also taught to have blind faith and not trust my senses, and I was also not to trust science. I work with evolution every day because I work with humans, and I said not trusting science is a big part of the downfall. It's a book that's beautiful metaphors meant to live your best life. They're using it to divide and conquer and judge each other.
Yeah.
For Christians, Jesus never lived like that. Jesus never said a bad thing about homosexuality, not a thing. In fact, he praised the eunuchs, which were the LGBT of the time, essentially.
Yeah.
And he was like, blessed are the eunuchs, the ones who are born that way, the one who just feel like they're that way, and the ones who are made that way, referring to all of them. And he talked about, the least among us. When you treat someone like the poor, you're treating me like he was trying to teach us we're all the same. We're just a bunch of human pack animals, and we're supposed to love each other. And when we can love each other, we're creating heaven. But when we do all these other things, like be envious or jealous or hateful, when we're corrupt, when we're lying, when we're stealing, when we're cheating, then we're living in hell. Well, we're watching the creation of hell right now. A lot of people are the amount of anxiety that American politics has now caused the entire globe and the millions of lost man hours wasted to dealing with Trump in the globe, not just in America, is unfathomable. And the trillions of dollars of wasted productivity in the globe, just in Canada alone, all the meltdowns and all the preparations and all the back plans and all the changes to deal with someone who's unpredictable. You hire a convicted felon to be your leader, and then he's acting like a convicted felon. There's no surprises here. We all watched it come in slow motion. He's been wanting to be a dictator for years and saying so.
Yeah.
And then his running mate Kamala, she's saying he wants to be a dictator, and then they that's mostly why she lost people's think. But she was just repeating. I was like, yeah, he does. He's been saying it for a long time, and now he's trying his best. And to be frank, Project 25 gave him the roadmap. If without that roadmap, he wouldn't have figured it out. But Project 25 also wants to dominate, and they also want to dominate culture. And they think that we're not allowed to dominate, therefore we're being oppressed. Is the fake narrative going on over there? They don't understand.
There's a lot of fake narratives that go on. That's the crazy thing. It's like they start that mob mentality. Once you get one going, then the others start joining with them. And it's like, it's just crazy to watch. And then now with the internet, you have more access to that. That's why he got banned from certain sites at one point. And it was just like, and everybody's like, well, I don't think you should have banned. Well, like, think of what they're saying, though. Like, everybody wants everybody to take action. And then when they do, then it's, oh, you're wrong for doing so. Don't do that. Oh, no. Then you want all these social media sites to police themselves. And then you get mad when they start policing their own selves. And then it's, oh, well, you can't do that. That's wrong. You can't do that. You're taking away my freedom of speech. I think when you're shouting out completely random things and spreading false lies about things, I think that's where you need to be shut down. Yeah. I think it's wrong. You should stop playing, because you're teaching these younger kids the wrong things, because they're seeing all this. They don't know what to think. They're confused. So now they don't know what to believe because they have 20 different people telling them 10 different stories, and then we're playing essentially the telephone game. You think about it, because we start with what the truth is. And by the time it gets to the other end, it's some completely different story at that point, and it's crazy that, and then the trans thing was just, oh my God, dude. There's that person recently. I can't remember this person. What is Lily Tino or something? That's always causing all this drama for people, and he's making all these people making trans people look worse than it is, because he's making these like outlandish comments in Disney World and things like that too. And everybody's lashing out at Disney. It's like Disney is one big entity. All right, I get they should do something about it. They probably should have already done something about it and banned this person. But he's over there talking about his genitalia in the form of cake pops and corn dog, and it's like, bro, stop, because what you're doing is you're making people look like creepers, and you're the one that's the creeper, not anybody else. Nobody else is out here talking about that kind of stuff.
It's total projection, Pete.
It's fear mongering a little bit too, because she wants to hate, but then she plays the victim. Oh God, no, they're all picking on me. I'm like, you wanted the attention, get out of here. And then everybody's wrong for pointing that out to her. I'm telling you, man, it's just the wildest thing ever. It's like, it's all over my feeds. I'm tired of seeing this person. It's like, stop, people. And then there was the whole Bud Light commercial thing. I don't know if you ever saw that, the whole thing where they had the person that was the LGBT community that was represented by the brand, and everybody's like, well, I'm not drinking Bud Light anymore, but they're buying the product still. I'm like, you all are missing the point. They're pissing you off so much that you're still buying their product just to dump it out. They don't care what you do after you bought it. That's it. They got their money. You can sit there and use it as fishing bait for all they care. They don't care because they got your money. But these people are like brainwashed into buying this stuff because they're so triggered by this one person they didn't like, and it had to be a marketing strategy by Budweiser. They knew what they were doing. They knew they were going to piss somebody off. So they're like, okay, let's do this and let's see what happens. And then all these people start buying it just to dump it out. They don't care what you do after you buy their product. You dumping it out. Okay, cool. They already got your money, I
can't imagine anyone would be that simple to buy a product to dump it out.
They were triggered, Darren. They were triggered.
Wow. The fear mongering has been incredible, but it's also the guidebook for authoritarianism. If you look at previous authoritarian governments, they attack the ones that are most marginalized. And by marginalized, I mean the least acceptable ones.
Yep.
So that was trans. It was the ones they could gang up on. But then they go for the whole community, and then they expand and it's migrants. And then it comes and it comes and it comes. And then there's prison camps. And now there already are prison camps. There's concentration style camps. There's there's total disinformation. There's totally nice people living in an alternate reality. They've been gaslit out of reality. They don't know what's true. They've been told the news is fake. You can't believe NPR. You can't believe science. The world's 10,000 years old. There are no dinosaurs. It's spiritual abuse, and they don't know what's real anymore.
Yeah.
And then if their pastors watching Fox News and passing it along to them as if it's gospel. And Fox News just should never have been allowed. To pretend to be news and then argue in court, we're not news, we're entertainment, and then to pretend to be news again. The damage and division that caused that's also immeasurable. This ship needs to turn around, and part of it needs to. Sorry, there's a mute button on my headphones I hit. I get so passionate on this topic, but I truly, this is no small deal. We're watching an authoritarian try to be one, and it needs to be stopped. And it only can be stopped if everyone comes together. Because right now there is still a state of division where people are afraid of each other, and there was so much disinformation. And I just want to make sure I don't leave out the billionaire class, because there's almost 1,000 billionaires in America now. That is an insane number of billionaires. $1 billion is a number people cannot boggle their mind. But think of a millionaire, and then think of 1,000 millionaires, and that's 1 billionaire. And that's just one. If they have 3 billion or 5 billion, that's 5,000 million.
Yeah.
For one person, there's almost 1,000 of them. There's like 900 and something billionaires right now. That gross amount of money should be shared much, much more. It is creating the whole bottom class to be unlivable. And they just squeeze and squeeze and squeeze and squeeze. And then they say, oh, blame the migrants, blame the migrants. And honestly, migrants are keeping prices down. Migrants are keeping, they're doing the jobs 14 hours in the sun that no one else wants to do for wages that no one can live on anyway. When I was in Arkansas, I'd drive by a construction site, you'd see, 12 Mexicans and a white guy. And the house was $170,000. Well, we don't have a house under $1 million, in fact, in Toronto, a self-standing home. It doesn't exist. But we also don't have migrant laborers being paid an unlivable wage to create them. If they want to spend $350,000 on their home, then don't have migrants build your home or pay the migrants a living wage. But it's not the migrants' fault that they're doing that. I mean, but now the migrants are targeted, and the lies saying they were committing crimes. Statistically, they are not committing crimes. Americans statistically are much more crime-ridden than migrants when it comes to committing crimes. Migrants are much more careful that way because they have too much at stake. They avoid having interactions with the police. They avoid doing anything wrong. They pay the rent on time so they don't accidentally get in trouble. They are actually much more responsible. That was always a complete bunch of lies. So that your streets are getting dangerous was lies. People were thinking that everything's going downhill under Biden, everything's getting worse, when everything was getting better. The economy is going down when the economy was getting better. But they also doubled down because economists all around the world said, no, bad idea, bad. Trump has no idea. And they literally said, no, Trump knows better than every economist in the world. And like, what? That is a double down against reality. A whole class of people don't trust economists. That in itself, that a whole class of people don't trust economists, who would say you're ascending your we all of us watched like tariffs. That's grade 3. Oh my goodness. What happened to the grade 3 class that taught them what taxes were? I guess maybe it got cut, but they need to bring it back. I mean. Oh dear! And then to convince people to vote for their own things.
Education-wise, it depends where you're at, though. Like here in Texas, they do this. They have this tax testing they all have to do, or what it's called, or some weird state testing thing. I never really understood it because I grew up in the Midwest, and our school is way different than that. We actually had classes here. It's, oh no, you got to get ready for this one big test that we got to teach you about. And I'm like, what's the point of that though? It's like, it makes no sense. I think, if you're going to educate these kids, let's educate them on something that they can use to get themselves a job and be successful. Wouldn't you think you want to replenish your workforce? Look at, try and get them to do stuff that'll teach them some kind of career at the end of it. So when they're out of school, they're all right. They can jump into a career. Even high schools now are starting to do them here. They're doing like a lot of career oriented classes and things like that, which we should have done a long time ago. Honestly, why didn't we start doing that sooner? I don't know. It didn't make sense to me. They should have just taught you the basic skills you needed to do these things, and then divided from there. Hey, listen, what interests you most, and see at least give them something to work off of. Make sure they're successful. That way, they could have an actual livable wage and earn something. Do something with all this time they spent in school, not just spend 12 years there and then come out and just like, okay, well, you're out in the world now. Here you go. Have fun. Figure it out. Don't know what to tell you. Yes, the fast food jobs aren't the thing anymore. Like we used to do at high school. That's what we used to go do. All the fast food jobs, you go hang out and work with your friends. Now it's like you have grown adults working the same jobs that they're not making enough. It's insane what these people are paying. Like there's places around me, they're only paying $10 an hour. I'm like, $10 an hour, you have to be out of your mind. Like there's no way in hell you're saying yes to that price. And somebody, I talked to one girl, but she was like, yeah, I make $10 an hour. I'm like, you gotta get, like, you're out of your mind. Like, what are you, crazy? Don't say
And then they're
yes to
stuck.
that.
They get stuck. You get absolutely
Mhm.
stuck because
Yeah.
they're not only earning $10 an hour, they're also juggling 2, 3 positions because the hours aren't secure, and and they also don't have the health insurance coverage they need in some cases. Um, yeah, so how do you get ahead when you're just surviving? That when
Exactly.
you're always sort of late with the rent, you're never quite ahead on the credit card. You can't slow down to study. You can't slow down to change your career. You can't slow down to even think. You're just trapped in this horrible frenzy of survival.
Right.
There's a lot of survival happening right now in the US. It's and it's something that's not new. Americans have been very long told that we live in the best country in the world and we're the freest country. Um, and even having, anti-socialist ideas that socialism is communism and universal healthcare. I mean, it doesn't make any
Yeah.
sense to the rest of the world. Like, why wouldn't you want healthcare for everybody? It just makes no sense why you wouldn't. It just it doesn't compute in any
It
kind of
it doesn't
way.
compute for a lot of us either. A lot of us don't understand it either. It makes no sense.
And
Like,
the pharmaceutical mess now. If
oh
you have
God.
diabetes, there's no protections. Good God help you if you have diabetes and lose your job. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness.
Yeah, I'm
Here in
diabetic
Canada, I
too,
think
so
it's $30.
it's
It's
crazy. It's crazy. Like that Ozempic medicine that I take, it's like $1,000 medication, but luckily my insurance covers it all the way. Like, cause it's a pre-existing condition. So, what do they say? Preventive care for me is covered under my insurance. So that's the only reason I keep it. Cause I was like, all right, well, that works. I'm
I
not
wanna
having to pay for all this.
I wanna go back to high schools as well because you were mentioning the
Hmm.
high schools. Um, I went to a big high school. We had 2 sections of it, and 2/3 of it was the academic section, where literally everyone was saying, "What university are you going to?" And there certainly wasn't a question, but then a third of it was the industrial section, and there
Yeah.
was a plumbing program, and there was a carpentry program, and there was a mechanics program in my high school. Um, so it's different in different places, and we're going back a few years, right? We're going back 35 years where we already had that. But it's different in every province here in Canada. We have a
Yeah.
different provincial system, and um, but those programs are needed. They are
Yeah.
needed. There has been like everyone trying to go in the same box, which works for some and doesn't work for all. And then, someone with very physical attributes might just fail in school and then just feel like a failure, even if they have giftings in other areas that they would have been a superb mechanic or a superb, you know, technician of some kind, but they've been appraised on the things that they weren't good at and tried to fit into this square. Yeah, the systems need more human approaches.
Yeah.
I was a
Yeah.
teacher at one point as well, so I have a good recognition of that.
But you were saying though, it's like it would make more sense if we drove it towards, replenishing the workforce. Like the medical is a big thing for people. Like everybody needs a doctor and things like that, and all that kind of stuff. Why not teach these guys stuff that they can thrive with? Now if that's not what they want to do, okay, let them go to school for that other extra kind of goofy stuff they want to do, arts or whatever else, things that really don't need really much more for a lot of people, let them do that in their own free time kind of thing, but give them at least a career so then when they get out of high school, they can at least, be successful, and we could teach them, hey, listen, at least you got a job now. If you don't like it, you can obviously switch your job, but at least you have something to get you on the ground running, at least, not leave them out there and just drop them off and go like, oh, well, it's all over. See you later, and just feel like, you just abandoned them, and then tell them that, oh, you need to have all these things. You have to have insurance. You have to have this. It's like, okay, but most people can't afford all that stuff because you don't give a livable wages. And then if you ask these billionaires, they're like, oh, well, that costs so much. No, it doesn't. If you really look at it, pennies on the dollar for you to increase to livable wages, you just because you don't want to lose a slim profit margin. Or was it the guy with Walmart? He was funny because he was like, "Oh no, inflation is good, but deflation's bad," is what he was trying to tell people. Oh no, no, deflation of prices, things going down, being more cost effective. We're not. I was like, wait a minute, what? What are you
Good
saying?
for
Like,
who? Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? It's like, who allowed you to get on here and talk? Like, someone in your area totally screwed up and screwed the pooch on this one and let you just start talking. And some people should just not be allowed to say anything. And he was one of them because he was like trying to convince people that, oh, no, inflation's good. Inflation's good for you because you make more money. It's bad for us because it costs us more. And then when the prices were going down, he was like, oh, no, that's bad. He's trying to tell people that was bad. I'm just like, yeah, I don't think so, dude. I don't think people are really buying that,
It's like
and
tariffs are good.
right.
We all know they're an extra tax. We just know they're a tax you had at the border.
Yeah.
Well, we all know now, I guess, maybe. We all know they interrupt trade. They've been proven through time to just cause havoc and well, it's an isolationist move. The tanker needs to be turned around.
Yeah.
It really does. The isolation that's happening, it's exactly what happens in a narcissistic relationship. You create this story, and then you isolate them from their friends and family so that they keep the story.
Yep.
And narcissistic churches do the same thing. They create the story and then they isolate them from the public school system or obligate them from the news to go to the actual story of what's happening in the world. And that's isolation. That's all narcissistic isolation. And now we're watching the whole country be isolated from their neighbors. As Canada founds new partnerships with Europe, as the BRIC alliance becomes stronger and stronger and stronger, there's a BRIC alliance. America is not going to be needed when it's
Yeah.
being replaced, because right now it cannot be needed. Right now it's the abusive country, right? And it's literally abusing everyone and saying, you deserve it. You're being bad to us. You're being bad to us. An abuser thinks that you deserve their abuse. And when someone is so simple as Trump to not understand tariffs, for example, and to not understand trade deficits, right? I think we all understand trade deficits by now, but in case some of us don't, if I have a trade deficit with you, it means I bought more from you than you bought from me. That's all it means. So if I go to a store and I buy something from them, I have a trade deficit with that store because the store didn't buy anything from me, but I did buy something from them. And that's called a trade deficit. It's actually not a negative. The word deficit, it's a negative just means below zero. So but people think negative means negative, like bad. It doesn't mean bad. It's just a statistic. So Americans buy the most from others because they're the richest country. Makes sense.
Yeah.
And in the case of Canada, America buys a little bit more from Canada than Canada buys from America. And it's just a little bit. America has 10 times the population of Canada. How could this country buy the same amount from this country as this country can buy from this country? But they almost do. In fact, our trade is almost equal, except for oil. If you take oil out of the picture, Canadians and Americans buy almost the same from each other. And a lot of companies in America are noticing that now that we're being accused of not. But in the case of America, we're this big, and America has all these other trading partners too. But it's a misunderstanding of what that is, and then accusing them of being bad. I mean, the only thing we could have done differently was say, no, we won't sell you oil, and then we will not have a trade deficit. But America needs the oil that we produce and wants the oil that we produce. I mean, if we said no to the oil, there'd be no deficit. I mean, and if they didn't buy the oil, it's pointing at something that's not a problem, saying, look, this is a problem. And,
Right.
and of course, fentanyl. The real crisis at the border was the fact that 70,000 guns were coming into Canada every year from America. And the drugs are actually coming into Canada from America. That's the truth of the situation. So we were okay to spend another $1 billion on the border because we're actually the ones that are getting invaded. But the false narrative that fentanyl was coming from Canada when it was
Yeah.
less than 1% of 1%, like it's just like 13 kilograms in a year compared to thousands of kilograms from other places. 13 kilograms in a year, it's like a little bit of, it's like a piece of sand came when
Yeah.
there's a whole
Yeah.
beach there. And then being like, oh yeah, there's a crisis. But the other thing is declaring emergencies, right, to become an authoritarian. That's where it should have just gone wrong. There should have been no emergency. There are no emergencies. Well, he's creating them over time, but there weren't any, right? But that was his false narrative, and no one challenged that false narrative. Why
Yeah.
one person with a mental illness who's a convicted felon would be allowed to declare emergencies for the entire country? It's been a slow insanity watching it from the other side of the border. Like it's really been really since 2015, but then 2016 we never ever dreamed it would turn out that way.
Yeah.
But it really has been this slow motion descent into insanity. It's and it needs to come back together again. And that's what I'm here for. The Narcissism Recovery Project is about recovering from this. The
Yeah.
whole nation's been narcissistically abused. It's so everyone needs to recover from narcissism. You've all been abused by the Oval Office. You've all been abused by Fox. Many have been abused, truly abused by their churches who told them, you're safe in here, but they are bad. You're
Yeah.
safe in here, but they are. Churches are meant to love. If your church is not preaching love, you need to speak up at church and preach love. The churches, they're traumatized churches. And narcissism believes that, me versus you, right? They don't
Mhm.
truly trust anyone. If a narcissistic person goes to a narcissistic church, they may learn to trust the people in that church, but they come up with a collective like, we versus them, we the good, them the evil, we the good, they the bad. That's still narcissistic. And there's a lot of narcissistic churches that really do believe we're good and they're bad. That's the polarized belief. And that causes fear. And as we said earlier, fear causes the whole front of our brain to turn off. And that's our most recently evolved parts of us. Eve comes after Adam in the creation theory of the Bible. It's not, and they've been twisting this to say that, yeah, because she's less than Adam. Yeah, he's the alpha male. She comes below him. She was the next step in evolution, gentlemen. She's actually above, because there was him, and we
True.
were all cavemen, and we could fight, and we could compete, and we could push each other, and then we learned to communicate. And words are power. Words allowed us to get in touch with our emotions and to convey our emotions to each other meaningfully. And then over time, we also developed compassion, and we developed empathy, and we developed closeness and connection and the capacity to love each other. These are human capacities that we all developed that are often considered feminine traits. They're not feminine traits, they're human traits. But the feminine gender has had more practice at it, and they continue to have more practice at it generally, because the child does come out of them, and they are primarily the caretaker. They need those emotional skills. Men could have them too. We do combine our DNA every generation, but if they've been taught not to, then they even avoid it, and they even try not to feel certain tender emotions.
Yeah.
Then it goes wrong. But those are not more evolved. Those are less evolved emotions. When men are staying like that, they're staying emotionally immature. Next time you hear Trump or Vance speak, squint your eyes and imagine someone 7 years old, and you're like, oh wow, it's an angry 7-year-old. They really are childhood processes. We all have narcissism.
Yeah.
We do, but we're supposed to grow into more emotional processes, more emotionally mature processes. Compassion, forgiveness, is empathy. These are higher emotional processes that we all should be striving for. And they're emotional processes that get criticized if you don't have them yourself. Like Elon saying empathy is a weakness. And many men have been taught that vulnerability is a weakness. And that's a strong misconception that I want your listeners to recognize.
Yeah.
Vulnerability is hard.
Oh,
It's a
yeah.
strength. It is a strength. It was
Yeah.
taught to you by men who were not able to be vulnerable because the whole generation was traumatized, like truly. And it did feel like strength to not be vulnerable because they couldn't possibly be vulnerable. They were trying to hold it together. No, vulnerability is strength. And if we can be vulnerable, we can connect with others deeply and we can create more meaningful relationships and we create deeper, more loving, more kind relationships when we're able to be vulnerable. We're meant to lean on each other. I'm supposed to lean on you so you know you can lean on me. I'm not supposed to be strong alone. Narcissism is strong alone. And lots of individualistic therapy has made it worse. Lots of it. Because they've
Yeah.
gone in for therapy and learned how to be happy strong alone. Like you're still making a mess of your relationships, but you're happy alone. No, we were meant to learn how to be strong together. And that's the difference. The Narcissism Recovery Project. I've created a series of workbooks called Love Loops because it's a relational disorder. When you put yourself on a desert island, you lose your mind.
Yeah.
When we lock someone in solitary confinement, they lose their mind. We are relational pack animals. We do not do well in isolation. In the case of narcissism, they don't trust others enough, so they do live in that isolation and they lose reality. And then they try to pull you into the reality with you. And we're watching it over and over and over, connecting meaningfully, having love and kindness as goal behavior, working on relationship skills, working on compassion, working on forgiveness, learning emotional regulation. People, we should have emotional regulation class, honestly, in elementary school. It would it would change society if we could learn how to deal with our emotions young. Can you imagine what a gift that
Yeah.
would be?
Yeah.
So,
Oh, no, I
so
agree.
so I'm creating free materials for people to do these so that you can start your own group. When I moved into this building, I live in downtown Toronto. I knocked on every door and put a note on each door, and there's 14 units on here on the 12th floor, and not everyone responded. Most people didn't. But you reach out long enough. 4 years later, I know everyone on the floor to a degree, at least at least to smile at. It's a nice feeling. It feels like home. I come home and I feel nice, and if I see someone, it's a nice interaction. And if I walk up to concierge with a friendly smile, they're likely to go, "Oh, hi, how are you doing?" If I walk up to concierge with a scowl, what kind of relationship am I going to create with concierge? Or if I walk by them thinking, "Oh yeah, there's concierge, I'll talk to them when I need them," what kind of relationship am I co-creating? We
Yeah.
are co-creating these relationships, and fear is causing people to create a mess. We need to break through the fear. We need to feel the fear, recognize the fear is coming from all this disinformation, and recognize we're just a bunch of people. We're just a bunch of pack animals. Everyone wants to love. Everyone wants to be loved. Everyone wants to feel safe. Everyone wants to feel accepted. Everyone wants to have a purpose. Everyone, the migrant does, the trans guy does, the trans woman does, the non-binary folks do. It doesn't matter. We're all just here to love. And I really do think, the New Testament was supposed to replace the Old Testament. It said so. So put it away. Stop talking about Leviticus. We don't stone the prostitutes either. And if you're wearing something of combined fabric, we're not going to kill you. Like, put away the old stuff. It was not meant for now. We're just meant to love each other.
Yeah.
And that's what I want to leave and if we don't know how to love each other, come get some free Love Loop resources. They're not quite ready yet. My assistant's working on them, and I'm working on them too.
So what's the timeline on that? Do you know when they'll be ready, and where can
Oh,
people find
within
it when they're ready?
the Narcissism Recovery Project is going to be the home base.
Okay.
And the first book that's coming out that was supposed to be released today, but hopefully maybe by the time this is released, is called The United States of Disconnection.
Okay.
And it's talking about how narcissism has taken over, and it's just sort of a non-blaming wake-up call, just like, this is what's happening, and the answer essentially is emotional maturity and loving each other. That's the opposite of what's happening right now. So with that book that's coming out now, I'm working on a companion guide, which is going to be a workbook that people can use to have book clubs and stuff. But separately, I'm working on the free Love Loops series. And the Love Loop series consists of like the 12-week guide to have a group that are practicing relationship skills, talking about what's going on for them in their real lives, learning how to connect meaningfully and deeply, learning how to support each other, and simply just a guide to be able to meet people you're not usually meeting.
Yeah.
There's so many ridiculous groups of looking for like-minded people. Stop looking for like-minded people. We need to meet each other. That's one thing we have as such a blessing here. I think there's probably 9 nationalities in the 14 units on my floor, probably maybe even more than that. But it's not unusual for me to be in a group and be like the white guy, and that's fun. There's so many interesting stories and so many interesting things that come from, the Indian family that lived next door to us had us decorate their 3-year-old's birthday party with balloons because they hadn't used balloons before. They'd always used flowers. But it's way too expensive to decorate your kid's birthday party with flowers in Canada. Yeah, no kidding. Um, but there's people on my floor from Hong Kong. There's just all over the world, truly,
Yeah.
and it's a lot of fun. But it also um, it breaks down the barriers. You recognize we're just a bunch of people.
Yeah, I think it's the important thing. At the end of the day, we're all people. Whether what nationality you are, it doesn't matter. But at the end of the day, we are all people. And I love the fact your message is everyone love everyone basically, because there was another guy we met that was a Holocaust survivor. He
Mm,
survived two camps, and his message to everybody was the same exact thing: everyone love everyone. And his other thing is that make sure we don't repeat history. So he had spent his life, and he even this guy, he's 96 years old, he even spends time to make a holographic of himself so he can have him talk to people on his website about what he went through. And I'm talking, he went nitty gritty deep in it, didn't leave any details out of it. When we were talking to him originally, he had told us everything, and it was just like, wow. And after everything this man has been through, lost almost all his family members, he literally says the same thing. He says, everyone just love everyone. That's the only thing. At the end of the day, everybody just respect everybody. It's not hard. We're all humans at the end of the day. Nationality just makes us a little different. That's all. But that's a great thing. It could be a melting pot like you have. Like you have almonds and things like that too. And I think that that's the problem. A lot of people go quick to judge just because they don't understand somebody's culture. They'll go, oh well, let's start making insulting comments about it. Oh well, these things, or say that. It's like, we don't need to do all that. How about ask questions? I'm sure they're more than welcome to include you in whatever they're doing. You never know, maybe it's something that'd be new interest for you. I think people are scared of change, and I think that's where that mob mentality comes. When we don't know nothing, we stick with what we know, and then we know that everybody else is doing this, so I need to go join everybody else. And it's like that sheep mentality. We're all hurting us all together, and it's just crazy. We got to stop doing this stuff. It's just, let's quit it.
things have become too polarized. Me versus you has become dominant,
Yeah.
and the honesty is, billionaires want that to be the case because it creates a weak population. It causes division. If everyone is together, there's nothing they can do. If you're all standing together on each other's side, they can't ping off the trans and then ping off the
Yeah.
migrants and then come for the Jewish or come for whoever they want. Whoever's marginalized, who's the least supported in their communities, are the ones who get attacked first.
Yeah. True.
That's it's that it's a slippery slope, and it's why
Right.
I've created a drag character. I don't know if you saw that in my profile.
I
It's
haven't seen.
I'm also a drag queen. So my drag
Awesome.
queen
Hey,
is a
awesome.
year and a half, Doreen Devine, and she is starting her own movement called Friends of Doreen. And Friends of Doreen are friends of equality.
Hmm.
They are friends of human rights for all. They are friends of democracy. They are standing up for truth and preaching that we're just all a bunch of humans.
Yep.
There's drag queens are another one that they're evil. They're evil. They're
Oh no, I
groomers.
love them. I
Oh
love
my
them. They're
goodness.
great.
They're a beacon of hope. There's humans exist in diversity, and there's an anti-science movement that doesn't like that too. We exist in diversity, and that's okay. Some of us come out neurodiverse in all sorts of different ways, and some of us come out with a feeling of gender that doesn't exactly match what we look like, and that's okay. There's nothing super threatening about that. And some of us come out with an attraction to others that are not the same, that's not heteronormative, and that's okay. But
Yep.
the projection that happens, and statistically this is provable. I mean, most of the sexual abuse in America is coming from churches. That is provable in statistic because they have the most people that are in the closet, for one. It's when you are repressed and not able to be yourself, it causes mental disorder. I
Yeah.
tried to repress myself. I'm ex-evangelical, and I tried to kill myself as well because I was shared the message that I'm evil. Um, that's not okay. That is not okay. So Doreen's preaching, you know what? We're not evil. Yeah, ask my neighbors. They know I'm not evil.
Yeah.
You know, ask my. Ugh.
That's my brother. He's not evil either, and he's transgender. So like I've been his biggest supporter ever since he transitioned. I was always there for him. I in fact knew before he even told anybody. He was like he told me, I was like, okay, what's your point? I already knew. And he's like, you knew? I'm like, I'm not stupid. I saw everything going on around me. I knew what was going on.
Mm.
I didn't ask you about it because you didn't want to talk about it. I was still here ready when you were ready to talk about it, and I never really made him feel any different. I was like, no, man, it's still family regardless. It doesn't matter, brother, sister, whatever you want to be. Okay, cool. You want to be a damn reptile? I don't care what you want to be. It's cool. It's not going to
There's
change the way that we are going to interact at all.
there's fear of difference.
Mm-hmm.
There's fear of difference, but also there's the mm, oh, I lost it. But the fear mongering.
Yeah.
Um,
There's a lot of fear mongering, especially when it comes to that, because people don't like that because that's not what they're used to. I'm like, what does it matter? It's not affecting your life at all. They're not doing anything. And then people like Lily Tino are just making it worse by doing these stupid videos because everybody associates her with the whole thing. And half of them are like, no, we denounce her. All can keep her. She can be on her own little island by herself. We don't want nothing to do with her, you
yeah,
know?
she didn't enter my algorithm, so I'm not sure about that. I know
Yeah,
J.K.
it's an interesting
Rowling.
one.
J.K. Rowling, that's shameful. I don't know
Yeah,
if you know she's attacking
yeah.
trans peoples in every kind of
That's
way.
huge. Just
It's
like,
uh, it's anecdotal at best. There's a few anecdotes of where it went wrong. There's more trans people now because of the acceptance. It's not because they didn't exist before. We've always existed in diversity, but we've
yeah,
lived in fear more before. We've
yeah. And
lived in absolute fear to be true to ourselves. So, um, a man would just be a depressed man rather than come out as gay.
yeah,
He would just be just sort of an uncaring husband and very often maybe they would find meaning in being dads, but
yeah,
um, but when it comes to their partnership not being something they crave or wanted, they just put up with it. That's not good for either one of them. Those didn't make nice relationships, and that's part of the messy model we're looking at now too.
yeah,
It's the fact that gay and trans people were getting married in heteronormative relationships, and those didn't look like loving, beautiful relationships in many cases. Sometimes they did, but very often not. They'd be feeling resentment and grudging that you're not the sex they're attracted to, and they
yeah,
might even be blaming you for it. Um, those are messy marriages, and there was nothing good about rejection. Nothing good about rejection. We're just a bunch of human pack animals.
right,
The fear, the fear. Yeah, it's just, oh my goodness.
right.
And the twisting of facts, the way they twist and make. Because the other thing I heard in Arkansas, the logical fallacy type thinking was, and I heard this on radio. I had to turn that thing off. I turned it on because I was curious. It was like, what are the local? It's like, like, okay,
He's like, never
press
mind,
play on,
forget that. I'm good.
tune into the CBC. Um, oh my gosh, the trip went off. There was a train that was going there. Shoot, lost
Well,
it there.
let's go ahead and start wrapping up then, Darren. How about you let everybody know where they can find you? What's the best way to
Okay,
say if they want to reach Darren, they want to see everything? Let them know where they can find you. If they have any questions, they like to reach out and have any extra questions that we may have not answered for them today.
yeah, sure. The Narcissism Recovery Project.com is my newest website, but it is in development. It will be expanding. It will be including whatever books that come out for publication, starting with the United States of Disconnection, which I do recommend as a movement, and then to go into the Love Loops workbook series that will also be on the Narcissism Recovery Project. We all need to learn to love each other again. Truly, you can be the change in your building or the change in your neighborhood or the change in your community. You can approach the library and say, hey, we can download these free guides and have a 12-week group talking about relationship skills and creating community again. You can do it in your condo building. You can do it. But I encourage people, like, we need to be reaching for each other and actually reaching beyond our normal boundaries and dealing with our trauma dealing with our trauma. Just really quickly going back to a quick story, remember the bird watcher in New York City? And then the woman who came up and was like, "You're attacking me, you're attacking." That trauma response, and she was a Canadian woman. She wasn't an American woman. She was a Canadian woman in Central Park having a trauma reaction to seeing a black man who's a bird watcher. That's what it looks like. That's what racism looks like. She probably didn't know she was racist, but that trauma response to others, that is the racism. So many people don't know they're racist. If that's the feeling you have towards other cultures, that is racism stuck in your body. And that trauma needs to be dealt with. And one of the ways we deal with that is by spending time together and getting rid of that ignorance. So, if you have homophobia, which is a phobia, meaning irrational fear, that's where I was getting the logical fallacy, right? There's like, well, if we allow them to marry men, next we'll be allowing them to marry sheep. Was what I was hearing on the news as one of their many arguments as to why gay marriage shouldn't happen. Allowing people to connect to themselves in a legal way does not in any way impact your relationship to connect with your husband and wife situation.
Right.
It's the absolute opposite, that they want to take other people's rights as if it threatens theirs. No, you're simply threatening the rights of others. There's nothing else happening here except you are causing others to not have the rights you enjoy.
Yeah.
And pointing at them it's narcissism, projection, the turning the tables. It's become a cultural movement, and it needs to turn around. So you can start waking up your friends and neighbors using love loops. And that just means creating loops where we love each other. If I look at you with hatred, you're likely to look back at me with hatred. If I look at you with love, just like that, I have people practice on their dogs first if they can't do it with people. Lots of people aren't able to love and trust others. So practice on your dog. If you can learn to love your dog, and your dog can love you back. They're also pack animals, and they're domesticated with us for a long time. And you can experiment being more loving in the world if that's something you want to do. See the difference when you go in the grocery store and you smile and you feel appreciation for the person helping you, and you're like, wow, you're really fast at that. Instead of standing there thinking, whatever it is you might otherwise be thinking. We co-create these relationships and they don't know it. I have clients come in, think the whole world is horrible, and it was actually them, right? It was them being a dangerous person, having everyone literally reacting to them because they're defensive. And when they drop the things, they're like, oh my God, I'm meeting such nice people now. It's like, well, they're actually probably the same people, right? It's, I meet someone, I have a different reaction than my angry neighbor meets someone. It's These are co-creations. Start co-creating love loops is the message in your community with your neighbors and your families. Not only at church, that's where it's gone wrong. Do it everywhere.
Yeah, exactly. And with that being said, guys, we're gonna end this episode of Pete for Society. Darren, thank you so much for coming, man. I had a great time talking to you. You were great. I look forward to the workbooks and everything else coming out and the book coming out, guys. So check out his book. Like I said, you go to the website, download the workbook, start your own group, start a change. Like Darren was saying, let's make it happen, guys. And you guys know I'm Pete for Anxiety. I'm pretty much on everything. X down to TikTok. I'm on Spotify, all the way down to iHeartRadio. And as I say, it always costs nothing, absolutely nothing. Be kind to somebody. One kind act you can do can save someone's life, or hell, you can make their day. I'm Pete for Anxiety, signing off saying, hey, don't ask how your day is today. Say, hey, how's your mental health today?